Hi, I'm Tiz, ex-corporate leader, speaker, consultant, and host of the Tiz Talks podcast. I help people empower themselves with the tools and insights to move beyond all those pesky roadblocks and actually live the life they dream about. And by showing up today tells me you're ready to take yourself and your life to new heights. See you on the inside. Hey, welcome everyone. Welcome to the episode 2 of Tiz Talks. I'm Tiz, your host, where we're talking all about the art of leadership. And as you know, my big saying is you take yourself wherever you go. And the whole point of this podcast is to create this awareness and to be able to provide tools and resources and insight and also to talk about that very messy middle that kind of stands in the way of us and our best life and our best selves. And often our greatest hurdles are things that we need to clear away first in order to have the life that we envision. And in my first episode, I talked about some of the biggest roadblocks that stand in our way. And they're things that are not of any big surprise. I think if you were to go around and ask people, hey, what's stopping you from pursuing your biggest goals or living your dream life or doing anything like that? I think a lot of people would have a lot of similar answers. And some of them are ourselves, our own self-limitations, our fears. And I could tell you so many people struggle with putting themselves out there or even sticking their neck out just a little. It's a scary place. But what do we end up doing? We end up reverting back into sort of our comfort zone. We're not necessarily happy there, but it's comfortable. It feels safe. And in the long run, I can tell you from personal experience, those comfort zones, it's not such a safe place. And in fact, over time, can really be a place of big resentments and regrets. So this podcast is hopefully a place where you can come to get regular inspiration, motivation, and also to gain some real insights and valuable tools and resources on what you can do to take control of your life and how to level up and step into your potential. So today, I want to spend some time talking to you about two things. One, about some startling facts, and two, about some questions that I have for you that I hope at the end of this show you will walk away and think about and ponder as we set the stage for future episodes to really dive deep. So let's talk about some startling statistics. And if you listen to my first podcast, I shared that 8 out of 10 people agree that they have unused potential. That's a lot of people. That's 80% of people just walking around, just thinking about the lives they want to live, but they're not actually living it. And knowing that they are capable of more. I think that is the tragedy, is when you know what, there's more in me. I know I've got more. And so when you know that you have this untapped or unused potential, that is grounds for a lot of discussion. That is where I want to spend a lot of time to unearth. Because if we can address those, then and help a few people, that is the whole point of this Tiz Talks podcast. So 8 out of 10 people feel they have unused potential. And throughout our adult lives, the majority of our hours spent is at work. And yet only 15% of people are truly happy or engaged in the work that they do. That is too low. That is far, far, far too low. That means 85% of people are unhappy, discontent. And I think career progression, I know for me, did not turn out what I thought it was going to be. And I did a blog post and I also posted it on LinkedIn. And I showed a visual of what I thought my career path would look like, which was basically just a whole bunch of steps, achieving sort of the very top, and what it actually turned out to be, which is a game of snakes and ladders, where sometimes the opportunities appeared and boy, I just skyrocketed and it was the most amazing things that could happen to me. And then other times the snake appeared and that made me fall from grace and fall all the way back down and having to take a lot of step backwards and having to figure out how I was going to get back up and get back into the game. And while it might be a little easier to brush yourself off if this happens to you early in the game, the truth of the matter is that those setbacks can really be derailing and can discourage us from really wanting to pursue what it is that we want so badly for ourselves because we become very fearful and we're afraid of how the world is going to respond. Let's face it, at the end of the day, one of our biggest fears is fear of rejection. And nobody wants that. We all want to be accepted. So here's some other startling facts about jobs and employment. And I'm going to refer to my notes because I want to get this right. And listen, this is just simple Google searches, and you can do the research yourself. But when I started researching this, the impacts of not having a job or doing a job that you love and what that impact is to us in our own life and our own health. Boy, I tell you, all of a sudden I thought, what am I going to do with this information? It is a conversation that I don't think many people are talking about. And yet, things like this happen to millions and millions and millions of people. Okay, so here it is. First of all, 4 out of 10 people will lose their jobs at some point. Fired, laid off. 40% of you will lose your jobs at some point. 23% of people will be let go, fired, laid off more than 3 times in their life. The one that really I thought was very interesting is the financial impact. So when you lose your job, the financial recovery is that you end up losing approximately 20 to 40% of your long run earnings. And I can tell you that for me, this actually was very true. When I lost my job, it impacted my long run earnings in a very big way. So you never actually fully recover when you lose your job. Okay. The other one that was really alarming was 83% of people who lose their jobs develop new health conditions, not from pre existing conditions or anything like that, but new. And some of the biggest ones were heart, stroke, arthritis, hypertension. 48% develop anxiety, and 20% develop depression, deep depression, if you've been unemployed for any length of time. 15% of people will actually suffer from food insecurity. This one breaks my heart. When you lose your job, you lose your ability to feed yourself and your family. And the fact that 15% of people will suffer from food insecurity in this day and age, in our world, in our country, is unfathomable. No one should go hungry for losing their jobs. I am telling you, these are not facts that and statistics that we should overlook, that we need to start looking at. And what kinds of things can we do with our own lives? How do we take control so that we are not at the mercy of things like that happening to us anymore in the future? Apparently, it takes 2 years for the average person to recover just from the psychological trauma of losing their job alone. Now, this isn't just a small group of people. This happens every day. I mean, you hear the news, 4,000 people laid off, 5,000 people lost their jobs. This company is downsizing. The announcements are endless and all the time, and we hear them all the time. It can impact your self-worth, and it can really do a lot of damage to your self-confidence. Okay, what is it that we can do? First, I mean, I believe that we do need to start shedding light on these kinds of facts and figures so that perhaps companies and corporations do take more accountability and responsibility when they do have a reorganization or are laying people off or letting people go. Perhaps there does need to be a more humane exit strategy and program. I think some companies are doing things like that. And I believe there are corporations in Europe that really do take care of the people that they let go of. And I think this is something that in North America doesn't happen so much and probably does need to be a topic of discussion. For me and for Tiz Talks, what I want to be able to do is just make you aware of these facts and figures. And we are all part of this world. We wake up, we go to work, we try to feed our family, we do just normal, regular things. And then all of a sudden something happens that's completely unexpected. And it's like a slippery slope. It's like that carpet has been just pulled out from underneath your feet. And now you're struggling to find your way back up. And I know what that feels like. I have been there significantly 2 times in my life where it has impacted me in such a big way that it has taken me years to recover. And I believe this is why I'm so passionate about talking about the art of self leadership because it is so empowering. Because I don't want what happened to me to happen to other people unnecessarily. I want for people to be better armed, to have the resources, to have that mental toughness, to build that resilience, to have the self awareness, to be able to have the courage and confidence to be proactive in their own lives so that things do not become these huge mountains and valleys and falling from the sky, but that life becomes more like, rolling hills and being able to roll with the punches. And to be able to do that, we need to develop some really good skills. And that's why at TIS Talks, we want to talk about the art of developing really good quality self leadership. Because leadership is not something you do when you go to work and then you take that leadership hat off and then go home. And one thing we all definitely lead is our own lives and being able to be our strongest advocate, to be our own parent, to be the boss of ourselves. And I think this is where a lot of people fall down. That when things are going great, well, then, life's a happy dance. But the second something happens, so many people are unequipped. They can't handle anything less than perfect. Yeah, we're going to talk about that stuff. We're going to talk about that icky stuff, all those roadblocks, all those things that can sabotage us and sabotage our lives and even sabotage our career paths, relationships, everything. It impacts everything. So now that you have some interesting facts and figures that even to me were mind blowing, let's talk a little bit about the choices that we make in each day. Hey, we get up, we try to figure out what to wear, and we decide what our day is going to look like. But inevitably, two things end up happening to a lot of people. Either you run the day or the day runs you. And there are going to be times where your work is interrupted. However, it's really important to find that distinction, whether that interruption is worth you moving your attention away from what was potentially important to now dealing with whatever this interruption or urgent matter might be. But I want you to really think about your choices in a day in a slightly different way. What I really want you to think about is where in your day have you provided attention to your bigger life goals? And I can tell you that for most people, it's almost non existent because they are so focused on the job, the family, other people, running off to play racquetball at night, whatever it is. and then go to bed and think, okay, the day was okay, but my bigger life dreams, my bigger goals that I have for myself, there's just collecting dust on a shelf. I have not done anything about trying to do anything about those bigger life goals. And then before you know it, months, years, decades can go by. And those big goals and dreams are still sitting on that shelf. So, my question to you is, how much time in your day are you actually spending towards your bigger life goals? And I'm going to throw another statistic at you. 72% of people regret some, if not many, of their choices. So think about your choices that you have each day and how you are going to spend that time, because today really is what we know for sure. Today is really all we have to work with. But what we do today, how we spend our time, what we focus on today really does determine and tee us up for the kind of tomorrow we're going to have. So if all you're doing is the same thing every single day, well, guess what? You're going to have the same kind of day every single day tomorrow. And then when something comes at you sideways, you will not be prepared for it. However, if you can seize the moment, seize some time in this day, and we're not talking about half a day or I need to set aside all this time to work on my bigger life goals. It's important to stay present, but it's also important to move forward just a little bit, just a tiny little step, move forward those bigger things that you want for yourself and dedicating yourself to some self development. I think at times people tend to learn their lessons in self development when things go sideways. When you've made a big mistake and you learn a lesson, like, okay, maybe I need to change the way I do that, or maybe I need to change the way I behave here. We do learn through our experiences, and that's very valuable. I always say that for me, if there was a cow pile out there, I was going to find it and step in it. And that's kind of how I learned, sort of touching the hot stove. And you do learn your lessons that way. We can proactively work on ourselves, our self development. I'm going to tell you something. Working on yourself is the greatest thing, the greatest project that you will ever work on. And this isn't something nice to do, it's something that we all need to do. And if you do want to achieve greater things in your life, to be able to accomplish the things that you want to accomplish, to be able to be the kind of person you envision yourself to be, then we do need to spend our time in self development. And it's an ongoing thing. I always say I'm a student for life. I learn about myself every single day, but I also make it an intentional practice. I want to say to myself, what areas am I still tripping over? What things do I still need to work on? And on the opposite end of the spectrum, I want to say, what things do I need to leverage? What are good things that I am good at that maybe can help me or take me to the next level? I'm telling you, if you can spend a few minutes every day to ask yourself some very important questions and do some good reading. There's so many great books out there. And one that off the top of my head that I'd love to recommend is The Mountain Is You by Brianne Wiest. She is amazing. And this book is very profound and it will have you thinking about you and your choices. Okay. So, and speaking of choices, let's go back to that. I want to be able to ask you a question. And this is a question that I have on my desk, and perhaps it might work for you too. And it is, what next right thing can I do? Now, this is what keeps me aligned and focused on the important things in my life, the things that I value, the bigger goals that I want to work towards, to stay away from the day controlling me and me controlling it. And I know I have to have it out there. I'm a visual person. So sometimes I can actually be distracted and I can actually focus my time and attention on things that don't matter or things that just are really a big distraction and are not helpful in any way. But when I can bring it back and say, okay, what next right thing can I do? That helps me to say, okay, let's get back to what really matters. Let's get back to what my immediate goals are, what my bigger goals are, and what next right step tells me it just needs to be small. It doesn't have to be huge. It's the little steps that we take every single day. So write it down on a piece of paper. What next right thing can I do? And it's just a wonderful one-liner that can help keep you on track. And it can help you determine what to say no to and what to say yes to. Because don't forget, today is what we know for sure. So when they say seize the day, boy, I tell you, there's no greater words. We absolutely do need to seize the day. The other question I want to ask you is, what new connections or networking have you done today? Or what connections and people in your life are you nurturing and getting to know better? In this day and age, we've become so consumed by being able to work on our own and just accumulating a bunch of friends on social media, but the connection is weak. And I think now we need to be also more intentional about how we go about making valuable connections. And this is something that I started doing a while back because it's not about the big numbers. Oh, look at me. I have 1 million followers. No, but who in that million people matter? Or who can you help or they help you? So this is where I like to spend a portion of my time, and I do it every single morning because I find that's the best time. And you can find your avenue or platform. I like using LinkedIn often for professional. But wherever you go, where can you extend that olive branch? Where can you make an extra connection or just nurture a new relationship or contact? And I think this is an area that most people, again, don't spend enough time in to intentionally say, I'm going to start to build a network of people that are supporters and that I support them. I'm telling you, there is power there. And I want you to think about this. So this is your question. Your question is, who have I connected with today? What new connections have I made? And who can I network with and get to know? Okay. So how can you start to prioritize your own needs while still being responsible and accountable to those that you love, your family, the people closest to you that depend on you? Remember, we can all have big dreams and goals, but you don't just, cash everything in and say, "Okay, I'm off to build my amazing life, so see ya." And a lot of people actually do the opposite, thinking that I can't pursue my life goals because I have all these obligations, because I have all these people that depend on me. And I know that I did get sort of stuck in that kind of thinking in the past. But the reality is there is a beautiful middle ground. And this is really about making room and making space for some of the bigger, deeper desires for yourself and bringing it to the people that you love so that it becomes a shared effort, or at least being able to gather some support. So it really, again, isn't about upsetting the apple cart, throw the baby out with the bathwater. This really is about, how do I make room today for some of the things that I want to achieve and accomplish in my future? And how can I include and incorporate the people that I love? I'm telling you, if you can do this, There is so much magic here. My final two questions for you. What fears are holding you back? I mean, I could spend a lot of time in this question. What fears are holding me back? And I think ultimately a lot of it can be drilled down to, as I mentioned before, the fear of rejection. But it can be any kind of fear. I think we fear that failure, that potential public humiliation. We fear if we try something and it goes wrong, that we'll be laughed at and embarrassed. Sometimes those kinds of things that we fear will stop us from actually putting our foot out there and trying a few things and taking some calculated risks. But I think what's really important is to identify the fear. What are you afraid of? What are you afraid of? And the other half of that question is, what do you think needs to happen to overcome that fear? So identifying the fear, but also now you are the problem solver. What do you think needs to happen to overcome that fear? Today, I hope I've given you a lot of food for thought. I want you to think about all those crazy stats that I shared with you. The fact that we can take control of our own lives, that we can begin to build that mental toughness, that we can start to move more intentionally throughout our day and start making room in our life for the things that we so deeply want for ourselves. We deserve to be our best selves. We deserve to live our best lives. And when we strive for that and aspire to achieve that, it becomes contagious. And the people around you are lifted naturally by your willingness to tackle that messy middle, remove those roadblocks, and all that stuff that stands in the way of living our best lives and being our best selves. So that's it for me today. I hope you join me next time. I'm planning on having some amazing guests and experts who are going to be chiming in and sharing their insights, their experiences, and hopefully giving you some more motivation and inspiration to be your best self and live your best life. Don't forget, you take yourself wherever you go. So let's make sure it's the best version of you. I'm Tiz, and this is Tiz Talks. Have a fabulous rest of the day.